Welcome everyone to Neo Reality Collective. I'm your host Eric Brown of NRE Productions, and I am with the honor and the privilege to gain the legendary artist and creator Phil Jimenez on the show. How are you doing today, Phil?
I'm good. It's a very busy Monday.
Hi.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, Monday's always busy.
but I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm honestly surprised I even got this interview. I thought it would be a lot more difficult.
I always tell people, so I am the absent-minded professor. I get a lot of requests for interviews and things, and I'm always like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And then I forget. And I always just tell people to follow up. Because if I have an open slot, I'll be like, sure. Uh, uh, some people don't try and some people are bad about following up. I am just terrible about schedule. So as long as you are persistent, you can usually snag me.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of stuff going on in the comic book industry and a lot of stuff going on in media. Like I sent you the list of stuff I had in mind,
Yeah.
and I really want to know some things about you. To just to kick things off, like how did you break out in comic book artwork and all that?
The short story is that I was one of those kids that could always draw, but I actually thought I was going to be a paleontologist or work in a museum. I was also a kid that watched a lot of TV, including cartoons like the Super Friends. And so I was exposed to comic book characters early on, particularly from Saturday morning. And then I started reading comics via a friend in high school and started creating my own comics, which are essentially cheap copies of the X-Men, but using my high school friends. And it turned out I had a real knack for narrative storytelling that I learned watching TV all those years. I understood sequence and pace and stuff like that. So I moved from California to New York. And went to art school for a couple of years. And during that time, I kept applying to DC Comics with portfolios and was rejected. And then the summer after my sophomore year of college, I got my first job. And I was hired at DC, and I've been working there ever since.
Yeah, and I recall correctly, you had a brief stint in the comic book landscape at Marvel specifically Grant Morrison's iconic New X-Men run, where you did basically the last few arcs and several last few arcs and whatnot
Yeah.
with them, and it was and Magneto doing what he does insanely. Like, how was
Um,
that process working with Grant at that time?
well, I'd worked with Grant on the Invisibles in the 90s at DC Comics. So Grant, basically because of Animal Man, was one of my favorite writers in comics, and I was obsessed with the Invisibles. So when I got the opportunity to work on it, I took it immediately. And so I had a really, it was a tricky experience, but I mean, Grant thinks in a way and tells stories in a way that I just don't. And I really love working for writers who make me think in different ways. And so X-Men came up, and I was obsessed at the time with New X-Men. Had no idea I would ever work on it. I just love New X-Men so much, partially because I love the quietly artwork so much. But I just loved Grant's take on the X-Men. And then I got the offer to do it. And the first gig was the Emma Jean Face Off, right? Which is pure soap opera. It's pure like Dynasty.
Yeah,
So I
when
was,
Emma was clearly infatuated with Cyclops.
yeah. And so I was super into that. And so remember most about that book, which is very funny, is how quickly we had to make it because I believe it was a bi-weekly book. And so my memories of that book, which are now a couple decades old, um, are I loved working with Grant, and we had to draw really, really fast because we had
And
to.
how was that process having to get a comic book done within 2 weeks?
So I remember when they used to do X-Men biweekly when I was growing up, and I still don't quite get how they did it. I slowed down considerably as I've gotten older. Um, I think when I was younger, I could do it, but again, the real hard part is I don't remember much of it because we were just cranking pages out, right? Like we get script and we draw, script, like so we were just trying to keep the machine going. So I remember having a great time. I love my editor. It was Mike Martz. I love those scripts. I was obsessed with what I was drawing. I just don't remember much of it because we were working so fast.
Yeah. Though, here's a question about the new X-Men run. What did you think when you were basically given the go ahead to like we're gonna kill Jean Grey off and it's gonna last for about a decade?
Well, there was no plan on how long it was going to last,
Well, I know that. I mean,
and I
like the
and
fact
I
that you got to kill Jean Grey off, the last artist to draw Jean Grey, like the original Jean Grey, not the time displaced one we got in the Bendis run,
sure,
but
sure,
the
sure.
original Jean Grey that got killed for or a decade.
I mean, I saw a meme recently. It was like all about the deaths of Jean Grey, and I was like, oh, I did it twice actually, which is very, very funny. Um, in the same arc. So, uh, what do you think? I mean, at the time, I was just like, oh, great, this is fantastic drama. I don't think I really thought about it, the consequences of it, uh, for years until people I would find out like, wait, she's not back yet. She's not back yet. Like that was sort of crazy. It was also during a period of time where I was killing off a lot of characters. I was well known for killing characters.
Yeah,
Like,
Infinite Crisis can attest to that.
yeah, so like Blue Beetle and Hippolyta and Superboy and whatever. So Jean was just one more in a slew of characters I was killing in like the mid 2000s.
Yeah, and speaking of that time, when you after you had finished your time at with the new X Men stuff, uh, I just was curious. Were you ever given an offer to just continue working with the Marvel stuff before going back to DC?
I'm trying to remember. I came back to do Spider-Man and was really, really excited because I was working with then editor Steve Wacker, and we'd come up with this 12-issue maxi series that was going to be like a Spider-Man crisis. All the characters that had ever appeared in Spider-Man ever up until that time. And we built it out, and I did a poster for it. It was actually gonna be really cool. And then suddenly, Brand New Day happened, and so my whole series was wiped out. Um,
Yeah. Oh god.
I,
If
I
I talk about Brand New Day and One More Day, especially, I'm just like, oh my god, can we please not talk about basically the butchering of Spider-Man? I felt like because ever since that day, ever since One More Day, it feels like it's been a roller coaster of let's make him more miserable, let's ruin his life, let's build him up and then tear him quickly deck down. And I was like, and I think people finally got enough of it when the Zeb Wells run happened. Like no disrespect to Zeb Wells. Like I thought he was a great writer. I believe I loved his Hellions run with X-Men and all that. And everyone even says like that was the best book of the Krakoan era, and even those who didn't like Krakoa loved the Hellions
right.
run. And I was just like, I want to say this. I always kept thinking like Zeb Wells was more like their fall guy, and I always thought Nick Lowe was writing the book because it was like, oh god, why is this guy being so miserable all the time? Like every time when someone brings up why can't he be happy, everyone just loses their minds at that.
Oh, interesting.
Like basically like how editorial controls the story too of over extreme, like sometimes it's been said. Like
Yeah, well, I mean, my time on Spider-Man was short, partially because they put me on the weekly book, which I didn't sign up for, and then it was the Brand New Day, which I also didn't sign up for, and then I stayed around on a couple of different arcs. I reinvented Craven's family, invented his wife and daughter, and I actually redesigned the Sinister Six, so all those designs ended up being used, which is kind of great. But just was not the experience I wanted to have on Spider-Man, so I bailed fairly. I bailed in about a year and a half. Um,
yeah, that
I
that
mean
makes sense.
the misery part. All I know, I think it is a general idea that that character is a bit of a he's a guy with the best of intentions and doesn't always have the greatest luck. And I think that people think, editorial thinks, that a lot of readers connect with that.
Yeah, like I can get that to an extent. Like some people feel like having Spider-Man be more mature and all that is unrelatable. It's like, but it's like it's not that time anymore. Like people grow up, people get older, people have new experiences, and I was like, and then I think the biggest thing I want to say is this. It's basically my take on this. How long can you keep doing that? Like I know comic books and Marvel and DC have a status quo to uphold, but it's like when you have a character that just gets beaten into submission over and over, and that becomes like a recurring theme. It's like, can you just give him like a moment of stability, like have him be happy for like a good while? Because I recall the end of Nick Spencer's run, and when Zeb Wells took over the run for that weekly Spider-Man Beyond book, when it was going to look like Mary Jane and Peter Parker were going to move back in together, and then all of a sudden some cataclysmic event happens, and Peter suddenly hated everyone again, and it was like, oh god, we're doing this. It just like I never blamed Zeb Wells. I feel like he was just dealt a bad hand because it's like you're dealing with one hand saying I want to do this, and you have another hand saying this. And I think and I recall this old interview, Jonathan Hickman saying that he always wanted to do a book that he said he could never do. He never said what it was, but when Ultimate Spider-Man came out, it was like, yeah, that's the book, isn't it? That's the book, because if he wanted to do the story he wanted to tell, he'd be probably butting heads with the editors
Yeah.
of that book constantly, and it'd be so nightmarish for anyone to handle and whatnot. And here's a question I wanted to ask: if you were given the chance to work with any character at Marvel right now, who would you want to draw and write about?
Oh, there's a particular cast of X-Men I would love to draw. My hope is that that'll happen in the next year or two. I was talking to someone about potentially doing some X-Men work. Um, I'm not a fast artist, so it would have to be like sort of a side project, not a monthly book.
Yeah,
But that there's a certain cast of X-Men that will always be near and dear to my heart. So that would actually be great. Um, I was never a big Marvel fan. I was a mutant fan more than a Marvel fan. So when I was growing up reading comics, I tended to be more of a character person than a company person. And so I was always like X-Men and Mutants, Alpha Flight, like that world was like my everything.
yeah,
More so than say the Avengers or Daredevil. So if I went back, it would be that, just because they're incredibly fun to draw. I connect with them, I get them. I have a history with them, and I would love to be able to draw them now, in the using the way that I'm working with Procreate on my iPad.
yeah. And one character I do recall you drawing that you drew as a cover art, and I was like, man, imagine if Phil Jimenez drew this character for a series, and it'd be Ileana Rasputin Magic.
Yeah, I didn't draw that cover, but I know what cover you're drawing. I mean, I love Magic, but in my head, she's one of the New Mutants, right? So
Yeah, you drew a variant cover for her when she was
yeah,
going through that whole Goblin trial with the Goblin Queen, aka Malin Pride.
yeah. No, I actually remember that. I really, I was in a Marvel had asked me to do a bunch of variant covers at the time. That was one of my favorites.
Ah, okay. I was like, man, imagine if you had put like Phil, like this is what I was thinking. Like, imagine if you put you with another writer or you write it yourself, and we get basically Infinite Crisis level violence in set in a series focusing on magic and limbo and all that, and her relationship with the X-Men and everything.
Do you mean Infinite Crisis level death? What is
No, not like
violence? What
that.
does violence mean?
Because I feel like Infinite Crisis had characters that went through very traumatic moments but still survived. Like that's how I'm saying. Like the amount of violence that people keep saying had that book at the time, and I
It
read
was
the
a violent book.
yeah. Like even like I don't think any comic book now has that kind of level of violence anymore, unless you like not even the ones that go with DC Black Label or is labeled mature for like Deadpool and Wolverine are given. And I still recall reading Infinite Crisis and reading that, and I was like, this was rated teen for teens. Oh
Oh yeah,
man,
uh, it's very strange. I mean, I've had a long-standing belief that being explicit doesn't necessarily mean mature. That you can have a mature reader's book that is not um, explicitly violent or explicitly sexual, and that the way comics usually handle that kind of explicit violence and sex is often not very mature at all. So I was thinking if you're going to do it, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Though I did want to ask you one thing. I did want to also ask. You were given a big lengthy run to work on Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Yeah, and I actually have the omnibus with me right now. It's out of print now, but I still recall I checked it out and I just loved saying this. But like, you have the story start not about Wonder Woman, but about Donna Troy, and you have the series end with Donna Troy, be right before Infinite Crisis.
Oh, that I think was that had nothing to do with me. That was the collected editions people put that book together, so I didn't even request it. So whenever I open it, it's kind of a nice surprise. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah, like your first story in here was the Donna Troy story from 1998, I believe.
the girlfriendsy story. Yeah.
Yeah, and the last story was the return of Donna Troy. Like, how would you? What was your thoughts on this run? Because every time when I checked it out, I was like, why doesn't he just do a Donna Troy story ongoing at this point? Because it feels like she's like the one focus we're getting with this, which I'm not complaining about. That's awesome.
Well, I mean,
Like, I know Wonder Woman
My
has a
Wonder
lot of
Woman one.
stories in this story, but like, I just felt like there was a lot of times Donna Troy had a big focus arc.
I think, I mean, I would argue that's because of the way the work was collected. The Wonder Woman book was about Wonder Woman. Donna was in it occasionally, but because of the other pieces in the collection, it might be Donna heavy. But I think Wonder Woman's in it too. I mean, I'm pretty much on record by saying my Wonder Woman run was difficult because there was a lot of editorial interference throughout the first year, and hurdles that we had to leap and changes we had to make, which I don't think helped the work. Um, and so I look at that run kind of as a dream come true, and also be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
You just might get it. There were some real highs and real lows on the book, and the lows for me were all sort of editorially driven. But the highs were also when when I had support from my fellow creators and other editors, the good stuff's really good, and it's sort of me. So one was really interesting. I mean, Donna Troy as an ongoing, I'm just too slow now to do it, but it would also just require a super supportive editor, which under the last regime, the last editorial regime, there just would have been no home for it.
gotcha, gotcha. Um, oh, there was one other thing I did have to mention. So after Wonder Woman and all that, and then you would be getting to do Infinite Crisis. You wrote one last story, The Death and Return of Donna Troy, which took place after the Graduation Day crossover storyline. How was it like bringing her back and basically being the first book to introduce the DC Spinner logo?
Um, I love these questions. I had nothing to do with that logo. Um,
Yeah, like I know, but like, how did it feel to be told your character, the character that you've loved most, and the story you're writing is going to be the one that introduces it first?
so I feel like I'm going to press you with this interview because that miniseries had been plotted and we were very excited about it. And then editorial threw in a lot of bombs and really wrecked it. And so again, my memories of that miniseries are really. I remember crying after the first issue because I didn't understand why they were doing what they were doing. Um, Especially because it had been pre-planned and was all set up, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez was going to draw it, and George Perez was going to ink it. We were all so excited, and then suddenly, editorial just tore it apart and rebuilt it. We were like, "What the fuck? Pardon me, what just happened?" Um, so my memories of that are rough. I don't remember the spinner rack part. I don't remember anything about that. I just remember thinking we had a really beautiful story that got kind of pulled apart by the editors at the time, and uh, for no for reasons that even all these years later, I'm still not quite sure I understand.
Yeah, yeah. Like I always keep hearing the stories that editorial way back then was really nightmarish.
It was tough. It was very tough. Partially because it it was never quite clear why decisions were being made, and so if we at least I understood them, I could be like, oh, I know what you're trying to get at. Let me try this. But a lot of it was sort of nonsensical. And I later learned that the feeling was if the process was too stress free, the editorial thought at the time was that great story comes from conflict. So if a writer and artist were getting along too much, or they were too in sync, editors would try to insert conflict between them because they believe that's where the good stories came from. That tension.
I mean, I maybe that could work at times, but I kind of disagree with that. That kind of leads to potentially risk factors.
I think we all disagree with that. But again, I only learned years later why editorial worked the way it did for such a long time.
Yeah. How would you feel about the way things are now at DC, especially with the all in era and ever since 2020, the pandemic happened?
I mean, it's a broad question. I think right now with Snyder's, it's what, Absolute DC, like there's, I'm pleased, so pleased to see that there's this incredible resurgence of interest in those characters and these sort of new interpretations of these characters. Um, I was working on Black Label, around,
Wonder Woman Historia, number one.
yeah, around 2020. I was just wrapping it up, or I had one more year on it. And so, again, by that time, I was not working monthly, I was working on special projects. So I was always off in a little editorial corner, kind of protected from the larger editorial caveats of the day, which I've continued to enjoy. Like if you set me in a corner and let me make something, I'll make something for you that's really really good. As I've gotten older, I'm just physically slower, but I find that the uh, I'm probably better doing sort of self-contained projects these days.
Yeah, I totally get that. Doing the self-contained, especially since now, while you still could, you still have you can operate not having this massive restrictions with continuity and all the stuff like we had to do. You have to connect it with this. You got to connect it with that. You got to connect it with this. But like, you could like you're still able to tell stories that will could eventually be put into canon, but you won't
I
have
mean,
to worry.
I love working with canon. I love working with continuity. It's other larger editorial concerns like you can't do this because the company is holding this character for a toy. That's the stuff that makes me crazy. It's not
Yeah.
continuity, it's not canon, it's not working with other creators, it's the other corporate stuff that trickles down, and I just don't like the
Yeah,
fighting.
I always keep reading these articles and stories about like the TV show adaptations that DC did, like Young Justice. Like I always kept hearing like, "Oh, Donna Troy's supposed to be part of this." Oh no, we can't have her because toy something rights and all
Sure.
that confusing nonsense.
Did she end up in season 4?
She did, but from what I recall reading, well, she showed up in season three, but she wasn't really. So she was supposed to actually be more. I kept hearing rumors she was supposed to be on the team at the first beginning of it, and they also did want to have her show up in Teen Titans, the original cartoon
Right.
series, but rights and all that kind of just stopped that from happening. And it's just like, oh, come on. And then we finally get her in live action, and it's like, man, it's awesome to see her in live action, but I kind of wanted to see her with the people, with the characters I grew up with seeing on the cartoon stuff.
Oh,
And
interesting.
people to this day still want a Wonder Woman animated series with Wonder Woman and her mythos.
I mean, I think there's definitely room for it. As I understand it, I'm pretty sure the Wonder Woman stuff being developed for TV is live action, but I'm not sure where that stands right now.
Yeah, the Lost Paradise series for the DCU by James Gunn and Peter Safran and his team. I do have a question about that. If what are you most excited for this new DCU take from James Gunn and Peter Safran, especially when Superman's set to come out soon in a few months?
What am I excited for? I am excited for a Superman movie that works. That's what I'm most excited for. Uh,
Yeah,
for a
I've checked out the
Superman,
trailers. They look pretty damn awesome.
yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for Man of Steel the first time and thinking I'm gonna hate this movie so much. That movie still makes me so angry. Um, my hope is that I walk out of the new Superman movie with the exact opposite emotion, sort of joyous and excited for more, and in love with Superman, and uh, that's I think what I'm most excited about is like a cinematic Superman that works.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for the best for David Cornsweet in his role as Superman, especially since he has big shoes to fill with that, both figuratively and literally, and especially since this is basically the beginning point of the big DCU project. Like I know Creature Commandos just happened, and that was a great show. I felt, but it's like this is the make or break for the DCU because if this doesn't work, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I think, I mean, I think we all believe, who knows what will actually happen. If this doesn't work, Warner Brothers will find a way to like shed those characters and sort of license them off to other companies. And I think there won't be a DC universe the way we hope there will be.
Yeah, I'm confident James Gunn is gonna get knock it out of the park, but we'll see when it comes out. We'll definitely see.
My yeah, my fingers are crossed. Like James is a really good guy, so my fingers are crossed that people respond well and that the movie he makes is a great one. And again, like I don't think we had a really good Superman for. Well, I get actually the Superman that was just on TV was a pretty great Superman. Uh,
Um, the Superman and Lois show.
yeah. So I would. It'd be nice to have a cinematic, like a movie Superman that I could root for.
Yeah, and and speaking of Superman, when the whole New 52 stuff happened and they rebooted everything, what was your thought process on that? Because if I recall correctly, I don't think I recall seeing you doing a lot of artwork on there during that era.
Mm-mm. I wasn't asked. I think I did a little bit of Legion, and that was it. My my memory of that time was the New 52 created this total emotional sever for me. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just like, oh, DC's not for me anymore. And I really felt that way. And I felt that way for a long time. And so that was during that period. I went back to Marvel. I was working for Valiant and doing a lot of work for other companies and working for Hasbro. And yeah, I mean that was my feeling on the New 52 was I was just like, oh, those are the characters I care about. Everything I've ever worked on was wiped out of canon.
Yeah,
Um,
that honestly annoyed me to no end because it's like you grew up with these characters since for decades, and then DC just goes in and tells you, "Nah, throw it away."
yeah, and all their reboots tend to be a little messy because they're never complete and full reboots, and so some characters had their histories were intact and others weren't, and I just hate that. I'm like, if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sort of like how I felt with when the DCEU was ending, and I was like, why are we still releasing these films if they don't matter? Like, wouldn't it just be best to just release them quietly and then be done with it? And especially how they kept touting the Flash movie, like it was going to change everything, and it was like it didn't. It just was there.
I did see the Flash movie on an airplane.
Yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to watch it about because of all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I was just like, oh god, I don't even know of how I could support this.
Yeah, yeah, I remember watching it without volume because I was watching it on somebody else's screen, the guy
Oh
next to me.
god.
That's how I consume the Flash.
Uh, and and then DC did the big Rebirth initiative, and you were on Superwoman, right? You were on Superwoman for a time.
I did the Rebirth book where they pull Flash back out of the ether. And then we did Superwoman, which the beginning was super fun. And then, like all things, felt like there was a period of time at DC where I just wasn't built for it because editorial came in and made these sweeping changes again. And I was just like, I'm only on the third issue. And by issue 8, I was told that because of events in Superman, I would have to completely redo the origin story of Superwoman, which I'd just done like 3 issues before. And I was just like, I just don't want to play this game anymore. I'm not built for it. I'm not built to fight that way. I'm not built to argue. I'm like, let me tell, I had 17 or 18 issues of that book planned. And then there's something saying by issue 8, I have to wipe out all the stories that came the first 7 issues and I have to restart it. It's just like, I just didn't want it anymore. So, I left, but
Uh,
I had a really good time. I loved those characters. I really loved working on that first issue.
yeah, and I certainly when I found out that they had changed certain things up with the Superman stuff, especially when they merged the New 52 version
Yep.
and the time displaced Superman of the original continuity, and it was like merging all the timelines, sort of speaking together. I was like, so then wait, how does certain events happen now? Why is Luthor still in the Superman suit if Superman never died except for the fight with Doomsday? And so wait, wait, does that mean? And then they don't remember certain things, like they don't remember the Justice Society was around and was erased and whatnot. And I was just like, I were we I thought we were building to Superman, Lois Lane eventually trying to figure out who changed history, which was Doctor Manhattan, and I'm just like, are are we gonna go back on that or?
Yeah.
And then when Doomsday Clock happened and Lois Lane goes ahead and says, "Who's the Justice Society?" I was like, "You remembered them. You're the original Lois Lane." Well, oh yeah, Superman happened, and then that retconned it out of existence. So I was like, so then between New 52 and DC Rebirth, it's like, then do those stories still happen or do they not happen?
I certainly don't know. By that time, again, I was doing siloed projects, uh, their own continuities and their own kind of takes, simply because the editorial headache was too much otherwise.
Yeah. And after that, you went on to do that. And after some time had passed, you were announced as one of the leading people for the DC Black Label stuff with Wonder Woman Historia. And I recall reading the old article, and it wasn't sounding like the story that was originally set to be written and draw. That it was just talk about Wonder Woman and her child, which would eventually happen in Tom King's Wonder Woman run, sort
That
of.
that's actually never no, that was never the case. Um, Historia was always going to be about Wonder Woman's mother. And it was always going to be about the Amazons and about Diana being raised on Paradise Island.
Yeah, it's just I think the DC.com site just kind of worded it wrong because it was talking about like Wonder Woman's son, and I was like, Wonder Woman's child.
That, I'm pretty sure that that was never a Historia thing.
Ah,
It
I
might have
could
been
have been
other
wrong
Wonder Woman
about
stuff.
that. I
It,
just recall reading a different article about it on
yeah,
DC.
I'm sure that was a rumor because from the book is exactly what was pitched. And so if what you read could have been a rumor or a misprint, but that was never going to be Historia.
And how was his story? How was working with that with Kelly?
It was a dream. It was clearly slow going. It took us 3 years. It was a chance to reinvent a mythology. I think it's the first time a woman has ever written the history of the Amazons at DC Comics. Kelly Sue was easily probably my favorite writer. We just clicked on that book. I would say that every line in that book is a dedication to her and the script she provided me. I learned an enormous amount. It was my first all digital work. Well, actually, it wasn't all digital in the beginning, but it became all digital about halfway through. Um, and you know, I I'm excited because a lot of people think we made a piece of art, and it's rare in an industry like ours that you get to that people walk away going, "Oh, that was actually art."
Yeah, like I read it and I checked and I was like less focusing on the writing, like it's great, but I was more like, my God, those are beautiful paintings.
Yeah, that was always the intent.
And
I,
my
I
only thought was like, man, imagine if DC allowed a director's cut to be released where it just shows the artwork.
I'm hoping that that will. I'm really crossing my fingers for that because the original artwork is. I'm some of the stuff I'm most proud of in my career. It's really beautiful, and I'd love for them to produce a black and white edition, but we'll see if they will.
Yeah, though, let's hope they do this. Let's hope they do this ambitious thing. Let's make that Wonder Woman Historia be the first quote DC Black Layer 4:3 ratio to be an absolute format.
4 by 3. Wait, say that again.
What if they make the Wonder Woman Historia book in its dimensions it's in be an absolute format?
Tell me what you would get out of that.
Like basically, like we would get the story and then we would get a director's cut which would come with the artwork, which would showcase the beautiful artwork with all the writing and all that, along with the behind the scenes talk about the process and making it over the years and the ambitious scope it was.
Oh, like so, kind of like an omnibus sort of thing. Is that what you're talking
Yeah, but
about?
in an absolute format.
I think I'm confusing Absolute with the new Scott Snyder line.
No, no, you know those big books that
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
those.
my guess is something like that will happen because DC is going to mine that property for a while. It did very well for them and won them a lot of awards.
Yeah, I definitely saw that.
So I expect there will be something out.
Like, I'm
And
surprised they never made a deluxe edition.
me too. But you know, not quite the company that used to be. So I think everyone's just working really hard to just get stuff out. Generally,
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And so here's the thing. Besides certain other characters, who are your favorite characters currently going on in the Big Two and other independent books?
my favorite characters. I feel like my favorite characters are always my favorite characters. Um, I am a sucker for the original New Teen Titans together. I really like. I mean, clearly Donna Troy I'm connected to. Certain X Men I still really love. Um, who else? Of course, there are two giant universes, and I'm blanking on both. Uh, God, who was I just reading recently? Big Nightwing fan. Uh, I'm blanking actually, but somewhere in there. I mean, it's the characters I love now are really the ones I've always loved. So some of the New Teen Titans, some of the X Men, some of the original New Mutants, wherever they are. Uh, yeah, most of those are continue to be my favorite characters.
Respect. Now the other thing I wanted to ask: have you been hearing rumors that there's a developing project for a Titan series for the set in the DCU project by James Gunn, and Peter Safran?
I haven't.
Okay, yeah, there were rumors going on the web about how they're going to use the cartoon series Titans to be, but they don't know which Robin they're going to use, and I was just like, so can we get Donna Troy on there? Because for God's sakes, can we just do it?
I mean, we definitely need a Wonder Girl. I think um, whatever version of her. I always find that when I look at Young Justice and there's no Wonder Girl, it feels weird to me. So when like
Yeah,
Cassie Sandmark, or not Young Justice, but like those Teen Titans, um, I always feel like there's a big gap. And so when they created her, it felt like uh, the gap was, you know, like fulfilled.
yeah, and I certainly like Cassie Sandsmark, and I also did like the later edition with Yara Flor. Like she's a good, interesting character. I felt like they could have done more with her, but there were all these setbacks and delays going on with her book, and it kind of wrecked her momentum that she was supposed to have. But it's just Donna Troy's been the one that I've always loved more. I always felt like she could have been a great successor to Wonder Woman, and I always wanted to know why do you connect with her so much from a creator standpoint?
So the primary reason, and it's so interesting, it was just reaffirmed when I was rereading some old Titans, um, is because she's the best little girl in the world. And so, particularly during the New Teen Titans run, she was kind of Little Miss Perfect, but not in a snotty way. It's because at the end of the day, the psychology that was attributed to her is because she was adopted. And so she had to work twice as hard to be good at everything out of like a fairly a large fear of rejection. Also, her big sister's Wonder Woman, right? So like, what do you do with that? So of course she always had to be this like elevated person. And so I think among gay people, it's a really common psychology, is overachievers being best little like boys and girls in the world out of a grand fear of rejection or loss. And so what I relate to with Donna Troy, aside from the fact that she's like a Sex in the City character, is that she has this motivation born out of her origin. She's adopted. And I think everyone forgets about that. They get hyper focused on her Amazon upbringing or when she was part of the Titans of Myth, which is interesting. But the part of me that interests me the most is the human part of her.
Yeah, and I've been a huge fan of the character, and I even got this out of print $400 statue of her
Wow.
at Third Eye Comics. Shout out to them. I even had gotten a hold of an out of print small trade paperback that basically collects the Who is Donna Troy
Oh
stuff
yeah. I have
from
a couple of those.
from a local comic shop I went to in Colorado when I was out of town. Vans Comics and Games, shout out to them as well. He actually told me a story where he told me that he had a family come to his comic shop once, and he said that they have a little girl called Diana. And then he told this couple about me, about my fascination with the character Don Troy, and they told her, and they told him that he told me that if they have a second girl, they're gonna name her
Remember
Donna.
Donna?
Donna.
That's hilarious. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and now we're getting another Donna Troy story in July, finally. And it's basically a follow up to a Donna Troy story one shot that was published about a year or two back that finally involves introducing her father.
I mean that introduced the idea. It's actually a sequel to the Girlfriendcy story.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's
technically,
yeah.
it's that's more of the inspiration. We just planted the seed in that one shot from last year. Yeah, so it's a story loosely based on mine. I was estranged from my father, and when I was an adult, he reached out to me to get in touch with me. And I remember thinking, like, what am I going to tell this? Like, what am I going to tell this person? And what's so interesting in Donna Troy continuity is that her biological father's never been established. So, which is always really funny to me that Dick Grayson, who's such a super sleuth, found her mother but never found her father. Um, anyway, that's not really the story. It's not about finding her father. It's that her father has found her,
Yeah.
and that she has to decide if she's going to meet him or not.
Yeah, and when you were doing all the teases of the artwork you were drawing at the time during the past year and a half, I was
Yeah.
oh god, oh god, this is gonna knock it out of the park.
Um, I will say the art's really pretty. I hope I there's a couple of great reveals. There's one reveal I'm kind of excited about. It's it's kind of nostalgic without sitting in the past. I think it'll speak to a lot of fans. My editor, Andrea Shea, who's a young woman herself, has been incredible with sort of helping me shape some of the emotional dialogue between Donna and her dad. It's really really terrific, and it's like one of those again. So it's I would say if the girl frenzy story was Donna trying to figure out why people hate each other, this story is about Donna contemplating what love is in her life and what love is in the universe. So it's sort of that's why they're two bookends.
So
And there's a really
basically, It's the
But
culmination of the big epic you've been having since 1998, more or
yeah,
less.
like Donna's a good character for me to ask big questions. Again, because of her unique origin and then her messy, continuity stuff.
Yeah.
And and interesting to me, again, like I connect with a version of that character that people seem to like. And so I think she's hard for some writers because writers get really lost in her origin. And I'm like, I think what you need to get lost in is her character.
Of who she is
Um,
now.
and well, yeah, and again, which currently is, I think, gone right back to she's Wonder Woman's kid sister. She's raised on Paradise Island, adopted by the Amazons.
Yeah.
All that Who's Donna Troy stuff is in continuity. So, you know, she was adopted and taken to the island at 2 and raised to be an Amazon.
Yeah, they did that in the Artemis Wanted storyline that took place after the trial of the Amazons epic.
Ah,
And I recall this during the Flash run, right before Cy Spurrier took over, was that they revealed that, oh, Donna Troy's son is still alive, sort of trapped on Apocalypse that Wally West saves. But I don't think they ever followed up on that, and I'm curious if they'll ever follow up on that.
we talk about her son. I do not address that particular story beat.
Huh? What?
I said we follow up on her son. I do not address that particular story beat.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to that. And here's the thing. Do you hope that this annual could lead to a potential series for her, whether written by you or someone else?
Um, if someone has something to say about her, like someone has something really interesting to say about her, I would love it. It's designed. There's some surprises in there. There could be more after, but it's also highly self-contained. And if that's the last of it, that's the last of it. My hope was to remind readers and other creators about like the vastness of her human world. And you know, hopefully they'll connect with that.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it when it comes out in July. I do recall a few years back you actually said this about Jonathan Hickman when he introduced this idea of Moira McTaggart being this mutant that reincarnates. And I recall you saying like, man, if only they did that with Don Troy back in the day after the John Byrne run.
All I know is that I thought that the Mormon Taggart like reincarnation was so brilliant. It was so good. I mean, I think that the weird part about Donna back in the John Byrne run, like Thousand Lifetimes, was that he attached the bad luck element to it, which I never quite figured out why. Because it's one thing to have a character be reincarnated over and over, but John Byrne attached that every lifetime she lived was like filled with tragedy.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like Donna Troy was never a tragic character, so I'm not exactly sure what we got out of that. Um, but uh, yeah. Anyway, all I know is that the Hickman stuff, that reincarnation thing was genius.
Yeah, but and if you thought that during your time working on at DC and when you were at during back then, would you have done that for Donna Troy to try like make all her origins canon in a
I
way?
I did make all of her origins canon.
Like I know,
It was really easy. People just didn't follow it.
yeah, it was hard. It's pretty hard to keep track of comic
It
books.
it actually wasn't. I think. I mean, and the thing that really frustrated me was her origin. Her human origin was the same. Um, like she was either raised on Paradise Island or by the Titans of Myth. DC had to decide which it was, and then at some point it was a mixture of both. Great. Um, it's a period of her childhood, uh, and she was raised by mythic people. It was either the Amazons or the Titans, and then she ended up with the Teen Titans, and it was really easy. Um, Again, because I was never focused on her origin. I was focused on her humanity. And I think that's the biggest issue with, I think a lot of creators get really lost in the minutia of the God part. And I'm like, you need to get lost in the minutia of the human part to make that character make sense to you.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Which is why I wanted to ask if DC asked you to make to like map out a compendium for Donna Troy, how would you actually set that out?
What do you mean? What do you want from a compendium?
You know, like collected issues of her best moments, origins, her the best storyline she's been in, and you having an introduction at the beginning explaining why this character is so important to you and why you've been so invested with her over the years.
I have to say, I think the collection that you showed is, I mean, I think that character was at her strongest before Infinite Crisis. So I think all the best material that she's in is in that period of time. I think there's some good takes on her, but again, I keep saying it over and over. They tend to focus on her Amazon, like making her Wonder Woman Junior,
Yeah.
which is the thing I'm least interested about her. I want to know what like her life in New York is like. I want to know what her dating life. I want to know what it's like. Her son, like her son's dead. Like that's gonna affect you. Like she was adopted. She was the best little girl in the world. Like she was the perfect Teen Titan until she wasn't. Like that's the stuff that interests me the most. And I'm trying like I feel like they've touched on that a little bit in the Tom King Wonder Woman stuff. I'm really interested in her. Yeah, I keep saying it over her humanity. The thing I enjoyed playing with her in my Wonder Woman run is that she was the most human of the Amazons, and she was always kind of like the the one that was making the most sense because she was like such a practical New Yorker, right, in a world of mythology. And she was always really, really fun to me for that reason.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Like okay, so here's a question. Have you ever dabbled with people writing fan fiction of the character and stories and whatnot?
I don't read fan fiction because I think most of us would tell you legally, if we were to pluck anything from fan fiction, we would be in such terrible trouble.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that. Like, I do my own fan fiction work for fun, and one of the ideas I had in my story is that Donna Troy is one of the main characters in this big epic crossover story, and I actually have a big one shot working on my own thing
Oh,
that
fun.
that I want to eventually make into a podfic and audio for YouTube and whatnot. Like always disclaimers and all that. And I was like wanting to get this story. I've been working on it for years. It was called Infinite Lives and Deaths of Donna Troy. And it would be set in that Young Justice continuity cartoon, but in a DC custom universe, as I called it, where I basically used the Young Justice seasons 1 through 3 as a foundation baseline for it. And I would tell stories and have stories be made that basically take place before, during, or after certain events.
So you're a big Donna Troy fan. What do you like about Donna Troy?
I feel like she like I do like the humanity aspect is the thing that I like most. But I think the biggest thing I loved when it came to Donna Troy was Donna when when in Tom King's Wonder Woman run, this is what made it click for me why it works, why her character is so interesting, is when Yara, Cassie, off ideas are basically test of strength and the arrow stuff, and Donna says something different, and you see her the artwork by Daniel Sampier being this, showing this rather contemplative thought she was going through. And then when you got to that moment where what was her different challenge she had that wasn't the test of strength and all that, it was her and Diana playing a video game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that is both funny and yet I could totally see Donna doing embracing that more humanity side of her doing that. Like trying to like show like just because she was raised in the Amazon doesn't mean she doesn't forget where she came from.
Sure, sure. I mean, that's why we have a big chunk, and not a big chunk, but everyone, kind of forgot she was a photographer and worked for a studio, and so we revisit that because I think something it feels like I could be wrong, but a lot of people forget that these characters have jobs
Yeah.
and professions, and like I know a lot of photographers. I used to date one, and so that information absolutely informs the way I think about her because it means she sees the world a certain way. She sees the world like a photographer, and that's I think that's important information about her character. It was fun because there's a couple scenes where I have her uh, taking pictures, and then she happens to be on a subway and goes by a billboard with artwork that she shot, like a photograph that she shot for an ad. I'm like, oh, just and Starfire's in it, of course, in the ad, and just yeah, because in my head I'm like, oh, that's that's what she did. She was a fashion photographer for a long, long time. And so we would see Donna's work all over. Uh, we don't have magazine stores anymore, but like she'd be on the cover of Vogue. That's that her work would be all over. Her work would probably be in museums.
Yeah,
Um,
and I do recall some people actually saying do try to reinvent that by saying, "Oh, she's also a photojournalist and all that." Like, what do you think of that angle they give her?
I think that's an attempt to make it serious. I'm like, no, like she's a fashion photographer. Like she finds beauty in the world. Um, I know the photojournalist thing again makes her like a serious photographer, but like uh I guess she can be. I mean, she can be both. I'm not interested in her as a
I think
photojournalist.
they did. I think they did compromise with that one shot a few years back where they said she can do both. She does the fashion stuff and she does the photojournalist stuff as part of her hero stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's a. I mean, we can. It's a very big idea, but I I think she's interested. I think my take on that character is that what appeals to her about fashion and that world is it's beautiful. And she was raised on Paradise Island, which was beautiful. Right? Like, so beauty is like embedded in the brains of these characters, and particularly her. And so I think the photojournalist thing was because she's searching for truth. And my big, again, that's, I think, making her Wonder Woman Jr., because Wonder Woman's thing is truth. And in my head, she's just not the same character. They're very, very different. Um, and I don't play her like Wonder Woman Jr. I'm not
yeah,
that my version of Donna Troy is not that. Whereas I think for some it is.
yeah, and I certainly respect that. I actually like that kind of angle that you have for her, and I certainly am looking forward to seeing Titans Annual #1. That will probably be like one of the. I am hoping for I was actually hoping for more big covers so I can collect as many as possible. Like I was also
Yeah.
hoping for an art germ variant as well.
I was actually really happy that Daniel was able to do a variant. That was thrilling.
Yeah,
Um, maybe if it didn't take me so long, we could have done it. But I don't know. I'm pretty psyched about it. I was going to
yeah,
say just one more thought on that. I think I like so for me, Dick Grayson is way. I kind of like him as Batman, but I think he's way more interesting as Nightwing.
yeah,
And Nightwing is so not like Dick Grayson is so not Bruce Wayne, and that's why they're great. And
yeah.
and so going back to Donna, it's like Donna is so not Diana, and that's to me why they're great. I think all of the original Teen Titans are just so are not quite their like
Not like their mentors, like that their
Aqualad
own
was not
person.
Aquaman, right? And so Speedy might have been like Green Arrow a little bit. Kid Flash was probably the most like his mentor, but I think the fun ones and the ones that interest me are the ones that end up being like really really different in terms of personality.
Alrighty. And if that's all we have for today, I'm just gonna let you promote whatever you can and what lasting words you want to say to our viewers, comic creators, and wannabe writers and artists. Go, you have the
Um,
floor.
so again, my next work will be the Titans Annual One. It comes out in July. It's a big focus on Donna Troy, um, and a man that comes forward and says he's her father, and she gets to decide if she's going to meet him or not. And I think a lot of fans will enjoy it because it's a really nice cross section of history and current continuity and sort of nostalgic continuity, etc. Introduces a couple of really cool new characters, a couple of surprises, which I'm really happy for. And the only other thing I would say is if for aspiring creators, it's a really weird time right now in publishing and comics in the world. And we always need new voices, and we always need new creators to sort of keep stuff fresh. And there are a lot of people out there with amazing ideas who just need to get in touch with the right people. I always say, remember, it is editors, not creators, that can give you work. So if you're an aspiring writer or artist, start establishing relationships with the editors you want to work with, um, because they're the ones that will hire you. I won't hire you; they'll hire you. So really start learning the ins and outs of the industry. If you read a bunch of books and they're all edited by the same person, that's telling. Do your best to reach out to that person, but you should always keep writing. Also, if you use Chat GPT, I keep hearing this over and over. Chat GPT has a style. There was a really interesting article in the New York Times about it, about kind of like Stephen King has a style and J.K. Rowling had a style. So does Chat GPT. So if you're using that to write, you need to go back in and fix it and make it your own.
Yeah, I
Because
was actually gonna mention that, like the debate about AI. Like, I feel like this is what I've said about AI. I said AI has a place at the creative table. I don't think it should take the whole table because then it's just then what's the point? And I've been using AI with my writing, but every time when I write, I go back and I edit it up a bit, clean it up, and try to add my own stuff to it, trying to make it match and trying to match the continuity I have in my head with it. And I've always been mixed about publishing some of the work I have on fan fiction sites because I'm always worried about what will happen if I publish it and people are just going to freak out about it because they'll feel like I'm being lazy and whatnot. Though I write the outlines of stories, I have the plot in my head. It's just that when I write the action scenes, especially, it's like, man, I am not getting it on paper.
I mean, well, that's the job. I have strong feelings about AI usage generally, and particularly for creative works, not necessarily for theft, but when people have the AI do the work for them, they are not doing the cognitive work. That's what makes them a great storyteller,
Yeah, I
right?
try to do
So
a combination of both, like the human element still added to it, and the AI helping me, trying to help with the whole process.
yeah, I mean, I kind of refuse on principle to use it, mostly because the companies, I don't want to feed the companies that want to take my job away. So
That's the thing I'm also annoyed with.
yeah, and so when
Like,
all
if
my
you just want
friends,
to use it for personal matters, fine, go ahead. But like,
but even that gives the AI generally, I mean, it's I feel like it's a losing debate, but our constant use of AI, even to write emails, gives AI and the people that own it so much power. And so the minute they want to sort of clean up my job, they can, right? Another year or two, it would be very, very easy, I think, for them. Um,
and I
and
definitely feel like they should regulate it more.
yeah, I mean, but they're not going to. So um, I think I just read China is going to start teaching their kids by age 6 how to do AI
Yeah,
prompting,
starting in September.
and it just bums me out because that's not well, maybe they'll figure out like cognitive stuff and problem solving, etc. But you're basically learning how to prompt, not necessarily make art, and
Yeah,
that's a
I
whole interesting conversation.
yeah, I think the one thing I will say is that I do think someone said this, like, I'd rather have the AI do my laundry so I can do art,
Yep.
not have the AI do the art while I do my laundry.
Yes. And I think my objection is that most like studio heads and corporate people would much rather the AI make your art while you're doing hard labor, right? Like
Yeah.
while you're earning money, not just doing laundry at home, but
I've also said about AI, I've said this, like I can see AI being used to help speed things along, like proof of concept ideas, like because like say someone has this idea for a project, but they don't have the money at the moment, and if they could use an AI to draft a proof of concept, and then they'll pay an actual person to help make it after they get the capital needed, and this is just trying to like show this is the vision I have for it, but once we get a human to do it, then it will be far greater and far more detailed and stupendous.
I mean, or it might not. I just think the counter argument is that but I mean, Hollywood does this all the time.
Yeah, but I'm talking about for
Um,
like independent creators and all that.
right. I'm just saying the proof of concept is still using other people's concepts to create your proof of concept, right?
Yeah,
And so it's still like a mishmash of someone else's stuff. I don't really object to that because my art is full of stuff that I've stolen, reference I've stolen. I just don't assemble it in AI.
yeah,
But I'm still searching for it. I'm making decisions about it. I am I am combining pieces of reference all the time. I'm doing the research for it,
yeah.
and that's what I fear with AI users is they're doing none of that hard like labor,
Yeah, like
and that's
I do
actually
that too. I do that. I research. I try to get everything right, and especially when after I get the writing done, I go back and edit it just to see, just to correct the things I made, and then I would just delve deep into researching and continuity. It made me realize I probably would work best not as a full writer, but I would probably work best as an editor and a plotter.
I have a friend that figured that out. He was writing a project and he figured out he's a much better editor than a writer.
Yeah, like I have all
Writing
the
is
ideas in my head. I get the ideas and designs in my head, but when it comes to executing it myself, it's like, man, it's not coming out like I want it to be. And then I'll become a perfectionist and I don't want to go through that.
right. And I just don't say, but that's the job, right? The and I think that's really hard for a lot of people is what the writers that do it, it's it's because they do it, right? I don't know how to describe it in either way. It is the job, it is the labor. That's part of writing is figuring it out on paper or on computer. Um, and you know, and that takes time and effort, and we don't in 2025 we want it, I think, faster than most.
Yeah, and I've been writing not I've been writing for like well over 10 years now. I've written so much stuff, and I always stop and restart because it's like it's in my head. I have it so clear, but when I type it down, it's just not coming to that dream I want it to be. And then when AI was introduced, I was strictly against it 100%. And then I just one day messed with it, and it was like giving me the details I do want to do it, and then I could edit it in and fix the stuff and add my human touch to it to get that vision in my head, and then I would just run it back and see over and over and see how that worked.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Keep writing.
Yeah. And good luck with what you have planned for the future. I'm looking forward to what you ever do next after Titans Annual number 1, 2025. Um, I think that we could stop right here. This is your host, Eric Brown, and this was Phil Jimenez joining us today for Neo Reality Collective. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, check out my other content in the description below. Stay tuned for more. I'll see y'all again next time. Peace and take care. And by God, this was NRE 10, everybody. Peace, and I'll see y'all again next time. Peace.